For with eyes made clear by many tears, and a heart softened by the tenderest sorrow, she recognized the beauty of her sister's life, uneventful, unambitious, yet full of the genuine virtues which smell sweet and blossom in the dust, the true success which is possible to all.
I always connected with Beth's lack of ambition when I was a child. I never wanted to grow up fast, and I always wanted more time. Beth's qualities, her contentedness, her sensitivity, her sweetness and simplicity are often the ones we think we need to lose when we grow up, in order to be tougher, to succeed. But the more I look at Beth, the more I find peace. So I'm spending the day embracing Beth March and her gentle, soft approach to life. So a lot of these houses have plaques with the homeowner's name on them. This one is named Increase Heartburn, and it's up for debate over whether or not that was really somebody's name, or maybe it's a heartburn store.
Rainy days don't seem so wet. Stormy nights don't stay. From the moment that we met, you were worth the wait. Oh, this could be the best thing that I'll ever know. Talk for hours and never slept. Two silhouettes on the concrete steps. We watched the sun as it slowly crept from the horizon to the place we met. Oh, this could be the best thing that I'll ever know.
That beach was way colder than I was expecting, but I love it so much. I love visiting like seaside towns in the off season. I just find it so peaceful and serene. It's just fun to see local life, how everybody lives there year round. Very meditative, very nice. When I got home, I saw that a dress I had ordered had been delivered. It is the most beautiful dress I've ever seen in my life, and it's very Beth, and I'm so excited to try it on. So I'm gonna put on my beautiful dress, and I'm gonna make a sponge cake from my Little Women cookbook and just have a nice cozy afternoon, probably do some knitting. I'm excited.
Oh, this could be the best thing that I'll ever know.
The sponge cake recipe calls for a strawberry jam. Joe dreams of earning enough money to be able to buy Beth strawberries in winter. In the 1800s, access to any fruit you couldn't grow locally was hard to come by and was considered quite the luxury. Even though it's easy to get strawberries now, I think they still feel special in winter.
Shadows gone with summer skies pulled me in under its eyes. A new city to get lost in. Always wanted to see Austin. Heard you running round again. Thought about when we first began. I was maybe 23, and you were kind of old for me. Sitting on a porch somewhere downtown, just watching hours float around. We were careless. Wish I could care less now. Always driving out, then leaving the car, 'cause we took too much whiskey at the bar. We were careless. Wish I would care less now. Borderlines, they hand us signs. Things weren't meant to work this time, and I'm fine with the fact. Start to call my friends back. Make a light of the dark. Walk around 1,000 parks and wonder if life is fair. Think back to when we were sitting on a porch somewhere downtown, just watching hours float around. We were careless. Wish I could care less now. Always driving out, then leaving the car, 'cause we took too much whiskey at the bar. We were careless. Wish I would care less now. Always underrated places we are and things we know. Always agitated. Lean back and let it go. Always underrated places we are and things we know. Always agitated. Lean back. Shadows gone with summer skies pull me in under its eyes. A new city to get lost in. Always wanted to see Austin.
I can't. I don't think I can anymore.
Why? It's just, no one even cares to hear my stories anyway.
Write something for me. I'm very sick and you must do what I say. Do what Marmee taught us to do. Do it for someone else.
You're doing the sides first. The sides aren't space for my popcorn because I'm making a popcorn one. The most important part. And you're wasting decorations and they're not dangling. The sides aren't the most important bit. If you're doing the sides, and the middle is the most important.
Here's another Christmas gift for the March family.
When I was rereading Little Women, there was this quote that stuck out to me. It goes, "Jo, living in the darkened room, with that suffering little sister always before her eyes and that pathetic voice sounding in her ears, learned to see the beauty and the sweetness of Beth's nature, to feel how deep and tender a place she filled in all hearts, and to acknowledge the worth of Beth's unselfish ambition, to live for others, and make home happy by that exercise of those simple virtues which all may possess, and which all should love and value more than talent, wealth, or beauty." And this was really striking to me because what I remember about Beth's death from the books is Jo's devastation and her feeling like Beth was the best of them. And what I didn't remember about their relationship so much was Jo's frustration with Beth and her kind of lack of ambition and her self-sacrificing sweet nature. I just always think of Jo as feeling ashamed that she wasn't good like Beth. And I was surprised by how much resentment Jo felt and how much her relationship with Beth changes throughout the course of the novel. And then I was reading this book on women travel writers in the 1800s, and it was talking about the cult of domesticity, which is a period kind of historically identified as like 1820 to 1860. And I was thinking about how Little Women was published in 1868. And I was thinking that was a really interesting historical context for the dynamic between Beth and Jo. What's interesting about the cult of domesticity is that it's actually when the cultural expectations that women were the center of the home and the family really came about. And I'm always surprised by the fact that this expectation of women didn't start until the Victorian era, because especially now when people talk about traditional wives, traditional motherhood, especially on social media, that kind of tradition is treated as like being from basically the beginning of time, when really it's a relatively new idea. And I think generally those people are referencing like 1950s sitcoms and post-war propaganda, but it's certainly not the way it always has been. And so we might think that Beth is kind of an old-fashioned woman in the way that her life is about others and about the home and making the home a happy place. But really those ideas about women were new in this period, and I think obviously in some ways Jo does represent the progressive era that followed and the push to have women more involved in the public sphere, in higher education and voting and politics and all those things. But I think it's interesting how she represents some of the old ways or ideas about women in the home and before these kind of newfangled ideas about women came about. And prior to the cult of domesticity, prior to the 1820s, it's not that women weren't heavily involved in the domestic sphere. It was more a change in attitude and a change in how people thought about the home and the work that women did there, because industrialization caused such a massive cultural upheaval, and that shift from kind of agricultural cottage-based life to industry and wage labor just changed really everything. But it meant that the home was no longer the center of production and women's work wasn't seen as economic. So before, managing the home was an economic role. It was tending livestock, managing the kitchen gardens, managing the children's education, making soaps and candles to trade at the market. There was still a hierarchy to colonial families, but both the wife and the father were in economic roles. When that all changed and men were earning outside the home, the work women were doing at home changed, and the way people saw it changed, and it was kind of assigned like a different purpose, basically. It didn't mean making money anymore, so what did it mean? Well, it became this kind of patriotic symbol, and especially symbolic of white, middle, upper class, kind of ideal American life. And women were expected to be virgins. They were expected to submit to their husbands and play a kind of nurturing emotional role as the heart of the family. So domestic labor, like cooking and needlework, were no longer seen as economic labor, but as emotional labor done by a caregiver. And that really helped solidify this division between the public and private spheres and the separation of women from politics and economics and law and education. And that wasn't invented again in the 1800s, but it was really idealized in a new way. And there, of course, was a response to the cultural shift, the progressive era that I was talking about, where there was a push to involve women in the public sphere. And yeah, I think Joe and Beth just map onto these cultural shifts and trends in really interesting ways, again, because they don't embody a totally simple, like, before and after, old, new, traditional, not traditional. And the way that Beth's lack of ambition and her sort of containment within domestic life and Joe's desperation to be part of masculine spaces and to get a higher education, join the army, and how that embodies ideals of the progressive era, but also embodies a more old-fashioned understanding of domestic labor. I just think is interesting. I don't know exactly what symbolism Louisa intended, if any, around Beth's death, but it is interesting to think about what both of those characters' futures end up being. And when I was looking at inspiration from Beth, I was thinking about her in a modern sense because I think we are living through a new resurgence of the cult of domesticity. And obviously the cult of domesticity today is different. It's the 2020s, not the 1820s. And I think what makes it really different is the presence of social media and how much social media has idealized domestic life and shaped our understanding of what domestic life looks like. And women have dominated this genre of content for 15 years now, and whether it's like the 2010s really oversaturated like Get Ready With Me's or the kind of cottagecore romanticization that got really popular during the pandemic, social media has played a massive role in shaping the kind of aspirations we have for our private life. And this content has been made against a political backdrop, and there's certainly a massive conservative backlash right now against gender roles and gender rights, and this kind of extremism shows up in social media content. All the tradwife content creators pushing women to return to what they see as a more traditional role and submit to their husbands, have their husbands tell them how to vote, all that stuff. But I think largely lifestyle content exists in this very interesting middle ground that I think is more so largely dealing with acute anxiety that has come out of the last 10 years and the last few election cycles, and looking for escape and peace of mind. So to get back to Beth March, I think there's something very interesting about her character. She is shy, painfully shy, and nervous, but she's the one who spends her days with the Hummels. And while the other girls are lost in their own dreams and ambition and paintings and writings and parties, Beth is not just sitting at home. She is taking care of her neighbors. And it's a very simple idea and certainly not a solution to all the world's problems. But I do think it's a really important part of the story that her shyness and anxiety doesn't get in the way of her doing a very generous and challenging act. And while Beth is characterized by lack of ambition and simplicity, which I find inspiring, she is not a character to whom the outside world does not exist, and is not a character who buries her head in the sand. And I personally struggle to find the balance between escape and romanticizations and my very deep desire to not lose sight of the fact that the world is so much bigger than me. And I think there's a very beautiful reminder in the character of Beth March to take care of others, take care of your neighbors, and that to reject the stress of modern life is not to abandon your community.